Guilt is assumed to be a universal affliction, a natural consequence of moral failure, a psychic wound inflicted by the conscience upon itself. It is seen as the ultimate regulator of human behavior, the silent guardian of ethics, and the force that compels individuals toward redemption. But Albert Camus, one of the greatest existentialists of the 20th century, would tell you otherwise. Camus saw something far darker beneath the surface of morality, something most people refuse to confront. Guilt is not real. It is not an inevitable force, a metaphysical certainty, or a fundamental condition of the human experience. It is a construct, a psychological mechanism sustained by a collective belief in an illusion. And more disturbingly, the most powerful, ruthless, and dominant individuals in history have never felt it. Why? Because guilt only exists for those who accept the absurdity of morality. And the worst among us? They have never accepted it. Stay with me. By this end, you may never see morality the same way again. Camus' philosophy of the absurd hinges on a brutal, unsettling premise. The universe is indifferent. It does not punish. It does not reward. It does not uphold any standard of justice. Human beings, desperate for order, fabricate meaning where there is none. They invent morality, law, and conscience as artificial constructs to make sense of a senseless world. But the most cunning individuals, those who rise to power, manipulate and destroy without hesitation, see through the illusion. They recognize morality as an arbitrary set of rules the weak impose to constrain the strong. And this is why they feel nothing. The worst people do not experience guilt, not because they lack intelligence, but because they understand something the moral masses do not. Guilt is only real if you believe in it. To feel guilt, one must first accept the existence of an objective moral order. But what if someone never agrees with that premise? What if they see morality as nothing more than a narrative weapon wielded by society to maintain order? Then guilt is not a natural response. It is a voluntary delusion. And once you stop believing in guilt, it ceases to exist. Camus' most famous essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, describes the absurd man, an individual who has fully embraced the meaninglessness of existence, and in doing so, achieves a kind of freedom unknown to most. The absurd man rejects all external justifications for morality. He does not obey laws because they are right. He does not suffer for his transgressions because suffering assumes a cosmic order that does not exist. Now, imagine applying this concept to a person with no conscience, someone who views morality as nothing more than a convention to be manipulated. This person does not agonize over betrayal. He does not wrestle with the ethics of his actions. He does not wake up in the middle of the night tormented by past decisions. Instead, he is liberated from the burdens that weigh down lesser minds. He understands the secret that most people are too terrified to accept. Justice is not real. Right and wrong are illusions. The world belongs to those who take it. In his world, guilt is fiction reserved for those too weak to escape it. If guilt is nothing more than a psychological construct, then its absence grants an individual an unparalleled advantage in pursuing power. History does not belong to those who hesitate, to those who are burdened by conscience. It belongs to those who act without doubt, without remorse, without the weight of self-condemnation. The world does not reward those who agonize over their decisions, questioning their moral legitimacy. It rewards those who seize opportunities regardless of their ethical cost. History has repeatedly proven that those who operate without guilt rise higher, last longer, and dictate the course of civilization. Genghis Khan exterminated the entire civilizations. To him, morality was irrelevant. Victory was the only law. He did not hesitate before sending whole cities to their graves, nor did he question whether his conquests were just. The Mongol Empire was not built on conscience but on a singular principle, uncompromising domination. Thomas Edison crushed competitors to secure his technological empire. He engaged in ruthless business tactics, taking credit for inventions he did not create and deliberately sabotaging rivals like Nikola Tesla. Yet today he is revered as a genius, a pioneer of progress. Mao Zedong starved millions in pursuit of ideological purity. The Great Leap Forward was an economic disaster, leading to the deaths of tens of millions, yet Mao never expressed guilt or viewed himself as a villain. To him, suffering was not a failure but a necessary step toward progress. Catherine the Great orchestrated a coup against her husband. She did not hesitate to seize the throne, understanding that the survival of her reign required absolute power. She is not remembered as a traitor, but as one of Russia's most enlightened rulers. What do they all have in common? The absence of guilt. Because guilt is an obstacle, a self-imposed psychological barrier, a hindrance to power. The ruthless do not see their actions as crimes, they see them as inevitabilities. And more disturbingly, so does society. The masses do not resist power, they admire it. They do not punish the remorseless, they reward them. Why? Because power is more intoxicating than morality. Because at its core, the human psyche does not follow ethics, it follows strength. It follows certainty. It follows those who do not hesitate. And that is why the world is ruled not by the best, but by the boldest. The absence of guilt is not simply a trait of the ruthless. It is a condition that allows individuals to operate without hesitation, self-doubt, or the shackles of conscience. While moral dilemmas paralyze most people, the guiltless move forward without friction. They do not burden themselves with regret, nor are they constrained by the illusion that justice will balance the scales. Their actions are cold, calculated, and unburdened by the psychological turmoil that weakens ordinary minds. Modern psychology has confirmed this terrifying reality. Sociopaths and psychopaths do not experience guilt. They are biologically wired to operate without remorse, immune to the emotional suffering that inhibits others. Their decisions are made not through empathy, but through pure cost-benefit analysis. Narcissists justify their actions through self-deception. They reshape reality in their image, convinced that their betrayals are justified, their cruelty necessary, and their victories inevitable. Tyrants rationalize their cruelty as necessary sacrifices. Every massacre, every suppression of dissent, every act of domination becomes an unfortunate but essential step toward a greater purpose. And the result? They act decisively where others hesitate. They manipulate where others empathize. They win where others falter. This is not simply a moral failing. It is an evolutionary advantage. A person who lacks guilt is more adaptable, resilient, and capable of taking what they want without internal resistance. They are not slowed by indecision. They are not tormented by conscience. They do not waste time questioning whether their means are justified, they pursue their ends. And this is why history belongs to them. But the implications are even more profound. If guiltless people rise to power because of their biological advantage, what does that mean for the moral individual? Does guilt then become a weakness? A flaw in the design of the human mind? If so, then perhaps morality itself is nothing more than a form of self-sabotage, a system created to restrain those who might otherwise thrive. And yet there is an even darker truth beneath all of this. The guiltless do not suffer, but they do not live either. They may rise to power, but exist in perpetual hunger, never satisfied, never at peace. Their victories are never enough, their conquests never ending. Because without guilt there is no love. Without remorse there is no redemption. Without conscience there is no meaning. The question then is not whether one can escape guilt. The question is, what do you become when you do?